looking at how we can support family members of athletes with CTE. And the project we've been undertaking, which is in the final stages of write-up, is around these family members writing reflective letters about their experiences. Just to give a bit of background, and George has talked about her links with the CLF. This background for this came when I was personally invited as part of a research team to travel to Orlando to an event organised by the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which was designed to support families of athletes who had died as a result of head impact, head injuries. And the aim of our interviews were to just understand these family members' experiences of being with an athlete in this situation. And the paper that we've written up as a result of this was a result of interviews with 15 participants, a mixture of genders and ages. And they were a mixture of family members in terms of 8 were partners of the deceased athlete, 1 was a sister, and 6 were children of the athlete. And all of these athletes had been diagnosed after their death with CTE. And after interviewing all these, just the reason for the pictures on the slides is that I look back at going to the event, and my memory of it was finding sort of little spaces in the Rosen Centre Hotel, which was this massive hotel, to interview these family members who were just so keen to share their stories in the hope that it would help other people who are going through a similar situation. And we wrote up the paper, and we actually presented it as an ethnodrama, and we wrote it up as a play script, as if family members were communicating or talking to each other in a range of situations. And if you're interested in the article or reading the article, I've got a QR code on the screen there if you want to have a look. And our aim was to try and engage wider audiences. So the idea is that family members who read research, if it was presented as a more traditional research paper, it might be more difficult to read. But if it was written in a more accessible way, people would find it easier to read, easier to engage with, and also easier to have empathy for the characters in the story. And I always remember going back to the same event that the Concussion Legacy Foundation ran 2 years later, and presenting these stories back and showing how we can try and use research to understand the range of experiences that these family members have gone through. And an idea for a follow-up project came on the back of some research that's been done in sport, and there's some other literature around this about writing reflective letters about what people can learn when reflecting back on their experiences. I've been involved in a research project that Chris Seslak led, looking at coaches learning from experienced coaches at the end of their career, passing on their knowledge to younger coaches. Mel Day and College of Chichester have used a similar method to look at how injured athletes can learn from their experiences. And we thought we would try this method as a way of getting the family members, or encouraging the family members, to write about their experiences and write about what they have learned in hindsight about what they've gone through. Effectively, we encourage them to think about, well, if you were going through this again, what advice would you give yourself? Or put in another way, if another family member was going through this currently, what advice would you give them? Because we can obviously learn from these experiences of hindsight and what people have gone through to help others. And again, some of the family members who got involved in this were really keen on this because they really wanted to help other people. There's a real nice feeling of community about helping others deal with what's an incredibly difficult situation. So athletes who have got CTE, who have these issues, there's a range of difficult problems caused by their cognitive impairment, behavioural issues, cognitive issues, that means they can't live the life that they were living before. And we got in the end we had 13 participants who wrote, family members who wrote these reflective letters. And if you wanted to have a read of these, they're very powerful. Two of the people who wrote the letters actually consented to have their letters put on the Concussion Legacy Foundation website. So if you want to see a couple of examples of these incredibly powerful letters about family members reflect on their experiences, I've got the QR codes there, and I'll leave them on for a minute. And it was a really interesting, I mean, research is always interesting when you analyze what there is in the data, and sitting down with the research team and analyzing what there was in these letters, and trying to unpick the themes of ideas of how this information can help other family members going through a similar situation. So hopefully, if you are interested, you've had a chance to have a look at the QR codes there, and have a look if you at the letters, these two very powerful letters that John and Laurie wrote. And we analysed this data, and the way we did it was as normal in qualitative research. We looked for the key themes. In this case, what were the key themes of the advice that family members gave to others? And we tried to frame it as statements, as if we're talking, as if the voice is talking to family members going through this at the current time. And there are some really interesting things. This idea of remembering that this is not your fault. There's often a feeling of guilt and feeling of blame that family members experience, and passing on that it's not your fault. A call to help. Remember that there is help, there is support all around. Don't look to seek support from others, and there is plenty of support around. The family members talked a lot about the difficult moments and managing these the best that you can, and there was definitely some advice on what comes after, so preparing and what's going on, like legal elements and that sort of thing. Just one example of the themes. I've picked the last one to give you an example of what we did with this data. We actually decided to present the data not in a traditional results way that qualitative research would do. We actually decided to present it as a composite letter. So we took all the quotes in the themes and actually created a composite letter that then could be given back to family members to share the voices of our participants. So one of the themes was making the most of your time together. And I've just taken a little section of our plan results. And if you have a read through it, these are all quotes that were taken from the letters that the participants wrote. And there's things like, enjoy the time. There's still time left to enjoy each other. So even though the athlete was might be that in cognitive decline, try and enjoy that time, and be grateful of that time. You will adapt, laugh and cry together. The secret to making it through is to love them the way they are. This means enjoying them and being grateful for every day you spend for them. So it's obviously incredibly difficult for somebody in this situation, having a family member who's going through these issues, but still the family members of our participants said about trying to be grateful, trying to look for the bright sparks, the things that would keep them going. And these comments, it was really powerful for us putting this together. Things like when one of the family members said, "This might be very hard for you, but these little moments will mean so much and give you more understanding of what's really going on." And the final quote about remembering the happy memories, and so it seems like it would be wrong for us as researchers to say, "Oh, be grateful for the times you share," but it's so powerful coming from these family members who have gone through this process. So that was the first part of our letter writing project, to analyse, for the participants to write letters, for us to analyse those letters, and then look at what the key messages were in the letters, and then write a composite letter. And as part of this study, we also looked at what we actually interviewed, or this was George's contribution, interviewing 8 of the people who wrote the letters, and actually getting them to talk about what this was like as an intervention themselves. So was it useful for them after going through this experience of having a family member who who was no longer with them, who'd had these head injuries, who'd had this cognitive decline, was the letter writing a helpful thing to do? Because it'd be wrong for us as researchers to say, right, we would encourage everybody to go and do this letter writing without actually doing some sort of evaluation of what the participants thought. And just to give a bit of an insight into some of the things we found a bit of a mixture of sort of positive and negative comments that the participants said. So overall, each of the participants they were very positive about writing the letter and recognizing the benefits of this reflective process. This one quote from a participant, actually, this is what they said: do they regret writing a letter? Would they still go through it and the pain of it? And the answer is yes, because of the benefits that came out of it. And that was the overriding message, that despite being difficult, participants saw the value in it. But it would be wrong for us just to focus on that without acknowledging some of the difficulties and the challenges of writing these letters. So I wonder if you would imagine, if you were encouraged to write a letter about a difficult situation in your own life, what would be the challenges of that? And some of the things they talked about in terms of the challenges of writing, there were various things that the participants said about not knowing where to start their letter. The fact that for some of them it wasn't a quick process. Some of them would start the letter and then they'd find it painful and leave it for a couple of days and come back to it. And also, were they ready to write the letter? Some of the participants said that there would need to be a period of time from their loved one passing before they were able to do this. And we actually had one participant who originally said they would write a letter, and it had only been a few months since their loved one had passed, and they just found it too difficult. So writing when they were ready to write was a key thing. And certainly there were a lot of quotes from the participants about the emotional impact of writing. They really did talk about sort of, it wasn't a pain-free process. It did cause them some emotional pain. And this participant talks about the heaviness of the situation, and then the emotional impact, because you're thinking about the person you've lost and how it hurts deeply. And I guess this is, if you go into the counselling literature, this is all part of reflecting on what you've been through and actually acknowledging all the challenges and the emotional difficulties of that. There was a lot the participants said about needing to be honest and telling their story honestly and truthfully, because there's no point in sort of dressing it up or making it seem like something it's not. And if you read the two letters on the CLF website, you'll see that in those two letters there is incredible depth and honesty in the letters. And then finally, the sort of other benefits, we've looked at themes around encouraging, we've called it encouraging cognitive action. So actually what the letter did was, the participants, when they were asked about this, they did talk about the letter actually getting them to reflect more fully and deeply on the situation and what they've gone through. And two of the things they said as a result of this, they said that they when I talked about guilt earlier, they said that it helped them to forgive themselves, it helped them to accept what had happened. So they talked about some positive impacts of this letter writing. And the other thing that they said was that it did help, because while it was emotionally draining, they said it did remind them of the good times and the good experiences they'd have with their loved ones. So that's the two stages of this letter writing project. We're in the final stages of writing this up, and I guess the next step is thinking about, if we've got this quite powerful composite letter, how could we disseminate it? How could we use it to best support family members? And also, could this letter writing approach be used in other contexts to support others, whether they're going through this or going through other situations? So there's probably some work to be done to look at not only how it helps the family members themselves, but how it might help others. So I'll stop there, John, and if Penny